The Nelson Mandela Museum and the Eastern Cape government will today commemorate the 10th anniversary of Madiba's passing. The event will be held at the Nelson Mandela Museum Youth and Heritage Center in Booi. South Africa's first democratically elected president and international icon passed away on this day 10 years ago at the age of 95. The commemoration will be celebrated under the theme Preserving His Legacy and Living His Values, remembering Madiba. Later on, the Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai will deliver the 21st Nelson Mandela Annual Lecture at the Johannesburg Theatre. All right, let's take you to the Eastern Cape now, and that's where we find my colleague Siphosethu Booi. Siphosethu, good morning to you. I remember that museum very well. On this day, 10 years ago, it served as a media center where all of the world's media had gathered to say farewell to Madiba. Talk to us about the Eastern Cape province. That's his resting place, not too far from where you are. The theme, very interesting, preserving Madiba's legacy whilst at the same time living his values. How is that province trying to emulate that?
Well, good morning to you, Booi, and to the rest of our viewers. Like you correctly stated, we are outside Booi at the museum, and of course, I can tell you, Booi, that today is a celebration to these young children that Utata dearly loved, as well as the elderly. We've seen just a couple of people walking into the museum with their children, making their way just behind me. I'll step out of shot quickly just so that you can get a sense of what I'm talking about exactly. You can see a pool there, but the weather will not allow these young people to actually, swim today, but there are also jumping castles. And of course, you asked that I speak about the issue and as well as the values of Utata. As we all know, that Utata Madiba loved children deeply and dearly, and of course this particular lunch that the program will be kick-starting with this morning will benefit at least 300 children, Oli. And you know that the Eastern Cape province is one of those poor provinces in this country, and you know the issue of poverty as well as unemployment in these particular rural areas in and around where Utata was born, and also just getting a sense of what some of the worries and concerns from the elderly are always the issue of theft as far as the grandparents are concerned, but the issue of rape of the elderly women as well as the children is also an issue of great concern in this particular region of the Eastern Cape, especially in villages, Oli. Times truly have changed, but I'm joined now by Dr. Vuyani, of course, Booi, who is the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Museum. Dr. Thank you very much for making time to speak to us this morning. The importance of this particular event, it's been happening for many years, but in particular today as we mark 10 years since the passing of Utata. And of course, starting off with that particular Christmas lunch for those dear children that he loved dearly. Speak to us about the significance of this particular commemoration today.
Well, you are correct. It's supposed to be a sad commemoration, but we have decided to have it as a celebration for people of South Africa not to be sad. For people of South Africa not to feel any grief, but it is important for all of us, people of Booi, people of Mthatha, Eastern Cape, the entire South Africa and the world, to remember Nelson Mandela as a former prisoner who fought for the liberation of our own people, as a man who sacrificed and committed his personal life to the liberation of African people in South Africa. Now we are here today, after 10 years of his passing away, to celebrate his life and times, and also to pay a gratitude to Nelson Mandela for all his sacrifices. He sacrificed 27 years behind the bars, changing prisons from Robben Island to Baltimore to Victor Verster. He sacrificed, 27 years without his family, without his own children. We are here today to say that irrespective of all those difficulties and sacrifice and suffering that Nelson Mandela endured as a man, as a husband, as a leader. Today, as people of South Africa, people of Kunu, we are saying we congregate here to remember the values of Nelson Mandela, to remember the greatest legacy of Nelson Mandela, to remember this man who preached peace, reconciliation, to remember this man who preached justice and fairness and freedom. That is Nelson Mandela. And how do we do that today? We've decided to bring together all children from the early childhood centers around here. We've decided to bring together all the children from the streets, those vulnerable, abandoned children. We collected them and bring them here in Kunu. And the purpose of doing that is to ensure that we are continuing with the tradition of Booi Nelson Mandela. And what is that tradition? It is the tradition of early Christmas for children, for the vulnerable children, and early Christmas for those children, for the fatherless and motherless children of this country. So this is a symbolic representation of what Nelson Mandela would have done if he was still alive, what we are doing here today. So we have brought all these children under one roof. They are coming from different backgrounds. They are coming from different homes. Some of them, they don't even have parents. So, So we are bringing them here so that they can feel what does it mean to have a Christmas, irrespective of the fact that this is an early Christmas, a Christmas before the actual Christmas. But these children, when I am having my Christmas with my children and I'm feeding them, who will feed them? Who will give them presents? So we are doing that, and that's exactly what Nelson Mandela used to do. In fact, we are following in the footsteps of Nelson Mandela. And by doing that, we are keeping his legacy alive. We are keeping his values alive. We are sharing his and entrenching his values. And we are using these children to do that.
And also just speaking about the fact that Utata was a man of great value, and just looking at some of the challenges that the people of the Eastern Cape are faced with, unemployment, the issue of stock theft in particular in the villages, the attacks and rapes that the elderly women as well as children, some of them being as vulnerable as the ones that you just mentioned here who no longer have parents. What is it that the Eastern Cape government, that you as the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Museum, you feel we need to still be tightened as far as ensuring that some of those issues are really addressed to the most vulnerable of our society, including those in the villages like here in Kunu?
You are correct, and you are bringing another dimension now, that a museum is not just only a cultural institution, but also a museum is a political institution, which simply means that it is an institution that is also responsive to the political pressures and economic pressures, social pressures that our people are subjected to. Exactly the social injustices that we have just mentioned. We are concerned about those things. And what could be the role and the responsibility of the museum, especially a unique museum that is named after Nelson Mandela. We cannot fold our arms. We have to be a voice of the voiceless. We have to raise these issues. And in fact, our government, in particular the government of Eastern Cape, they know that as Nelson Mandela Museum, we are raising these issues. Because you must remember that the museum is a people's institution, and it is also an institution that exists within the civil society, within a particular community. So why would we fold our arms when our people are suffering? Why would we fold our arms when our government is not taking a full responsibility of protecting children, of protecting the elderly, of making sure that we are safe, of making sure that we are secured? As the Nelson Mandela Museum, in particular, not just any other museum, but the museum that is named after this global icon, a freedom fighter, we cannot be voiceless. We need to say, you government of Eastern Cape, it is a high time that you look critically at the issues of poverty, inequality, and unemployment. And those are the issues which are defining the Eastern Cape landscape. I understand for a fact that there is a narrative that says there's a drastic decline when it comes to unemployment in Eastern Cape. But look, I am not sure about that, and I'm not sure about that stats, but all that I'm saying as the CEO of this organization, that this government of the Eastern Cape and this government of South Africa must make sure that the values of Nelson Mandela, we are living up to those. And we must make sure that our people, in particular black African people, they are enjoying the fact that they are having a democratic government. And they are also looking forward to vote for the same government. So which simply means that our own people and our own government, they have to find themselves, they have to find each other and to work with each other and to collaborate and to partner to fight all these social injustices. Thank you.
Dr. Booi, the CEO of the Nelson Mandela Museum, only just giving us a sense of what it is exactly UTATA stood for and what still needs to happen as far as the Eastern Cape government is concerned to attend to some of these great concerns that are faced by many, especially here in the Eastern Cape, in particular the rural areas like Mvezo, you name them in this particular area. It's back to you in studio, Oli.
Live for us at the Booi Museum, the Nelson Mandela Museum there, my colleague Siphosethu Booi. Thank you very much on this important day as we remember Madiba.